and welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast.
We're going to do something a little different this week. We're going to look back at chess through various pop culture events. So that's books, movies, TV shows, musicals, and video games. They've all mentioned chess in one way or another, some exploring the depths of the game, and some were to help showcase that someone is smart, and others, well, they at least featured a chessboard with chess pieces on top of it. Disclaimer before we start, I was born and grew up in the United States, so most of my exposure to chess media was pretty limited to media covered by Western audiences. If anyone has chess recommendations, feel free to reach out or send me an email and I'll definitely look into it. First, I wanted to talk about a brief history of chess in media. So, about half a decade ago at this point, chess saw a boom around the pandemic. People were confined to their homes, and we saw shows like The Queen's Gambit and websites like chess.com have explosive growth. Currently, the largest chess YouTube channel belongs to Gotham Chess with over 6 million subscribers. But the first chess YouTube channel was actually the Chess Network. They're still uploading videos, but this was started back in 2008. That's almost 20 years ago. The first chess TV show was The Master Game from about 1976 to 1983 that focused on showcasing chess games, tournaments, and being overall educational about chess. Rotating the clock back about 120 years, we get to see the first chess film. It was a 1-minute silent short in 1903 called A Chess Dispute, which featured two people playing chess, and it quickly devolved into the two men beating each other up. However, if we are looking at the idea of telling a story through chess, we don't need to go very far. The process of writing chess moves down and notating the game has been an evolving process over the centuries. Today, we use what is called algebraic notation, where we note the piece and one of the 8x8 coordinates that it is currently moving to. So a move like knight moving to the third rank 6 square over would be written as in f3, or knight to f3. In the early 1900s, there was a system called descriptive notation, which would help tell where pieces were from the player's perspective. So a move like knight to f3 was written as kt kb3, or that would be king's knight moved to the bishop's third square. Then if we were to back up way into the 1600s, you get like full sentences. So a move like knight to f3 would be written as the white king commands his own knight into the third house before his own bishop. So by the end of the game, if you string all of those moves together with those complete sentences, you're telling a story of how the game went. So every chess game was its own story that people could read and experience. With chess having been around for almost 1,500 years, there have been tons of chess games, players, and storylines to choose from, but there hasn't been a player that has been more focused on than Bobby Fischer. His story lends itself to be adapted in many ways. He was a great chess player, he was a good rags to riches success type of storyline, he played during a politically charged time of history, and he had to fight his own demons in order to play. So that gives our quote-unquote protagonist a weakness. So all of those combined help tell a great story. As time goes on, it will become harder and harder to know what stories are real of Fischer versus which are exaggerated or even lies about the life of Fischer, eventually elevating him to legend or mythical status in the chess world. In 2020, we got a Netflix show called The Queen's Gambit, which was based on a 1983 novel, where we see our protagonist, Beth Harmon, taking a similar path to Fischer, dealing with mental health, not having a lot of friends, dominating the chess world, then climbing the ladder until she defeated the Russian world champion. In 2014, we got Pawn's Sacrifice. This was led by Tobey Maguire, where he walks through Bobby Fischer's life all the way to the 1972 World Championship and the various mental health struggles that he dealt with. Bobby Fischer also helped inspire a musical. Chess the Musical, originally performed in 1986, walks through the Cold War with a young American player taking on the Soviet Union, and it features songs like One Night in Bangkok and Pity the Child. We've also seen real chess games being shown in fictional settings as a way to help further the story that the directors are trying to tell. So in 2001, A Space Odyssey, we see Paul resigning against HAL 9000 when HAL had specified the wrong notation, and Paul went along with it and resigned. The moves they were showing came from a game of Roche versus Schengel from Hamburg, 1910. In the 1963 James Bond film From Russia with Love, we see the game Spassky versus Bronstein of the USSR championships that had occurred 3 years prior. In the movie, they are playing the tie-breaking game of the International Grandmasters Championship. In the 2011 film Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, we see the world-renowned detective competing in a battle of wits against Moriarty, where the two players are replaying the game Bent Larsen versus Tigran Petrosian from 1966 without looking at the board. If we were to back out another level, we have media that portrays chess more as like a plot device, but we don't really see any games. The idea of chess is being leveraged as a tool for intelligence, or like thinking ahead. So in the television show The West Wing, President Bartlett's MS medical diagnosis is starting to take a hold of him, and so he plays chess to try to help keep his mind sharp as his body starts to succumb to the illness. In the French film Queen to Play, we see a woman in a small, quiet town that becomes obsessed with chess, and you can see her growth through her opening moves, but the level of chess that is shown in the movie is pretty surface level. In HBO's The Wire, it has an iconic scene where you don't really get a close-up of the board, but you can hear how the hierarchy of power in their organization is run by comparing them to the various chess pieces. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, the 11-year-olds are playing on a giant chessboard where the pieces are literally destroyed if they are captured. Jeremy Silman assisted in creating a puzzle that helped fit the game and the movie, but he wasn't credited in the show, and we don't see the full puzzle while we are in the movie. Star Trek, and to a lesser degree The Big Bang Theory, played 3D chess to help showcase character intelligence by adding an elevated layer of complexity to the game. A couple of other examples include The Chess Player from 2017, which features a spy who was captured. There isn't a lot of focus on chess, except that the main character is a chess player. The Lusheim Defense, based on the 1930 novel, we see an introverted chess player falling in love with a girl, but struggling to adapt to society. And then to lighten the mood a little bit, we have the 1997 Pixar short, Jerry's Game, where an old man plays against himself in chess. It's a cute little short that demonstrated the technological capabilities of the time. One thing is apparent in most of these pieces of media. There's an element of love about the game. You can tell that the person who is creating the story really cares about the game. If they're referencing a Grandmaster game or key players from history, they wanted to have at least some level of accuracy and pay homage to a specific time period, to chess history, or to chess titans. On the other hand, there are those that don't do that. So whether it is for comedic effect or because they genuinely don't know how chess works, if you catch a chessboard in the background of most TV shows, movies, or commercials, the board may not be set up correctly, the moves don't make sense, or the pieces look like chess pieces, but whatever they're doing on the board isn't chess. Actually, this is a pretty fun game. Try it yourself. If you see a chessboard flash on a TV screen, check to see if a dark square is in the lower left-hand corner, or if the king and queen are on their correct squares. I'll bet you more than half of the time they are not, and sometimes the more egregious the errors, the better. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't an attempt to knock that type of media. It's all entertainment, and we all need to take it as such. That said, here are a couple of examples where chess is used as a more comedic sense. In 1997, on the iconic show Saturday Night Live, there's a skit featuring Will Ferrell and Sherry Ottery as chess cheerleaders. In 1999's Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, there is a suggestive scene, but the most scandalous element of that scene is a close-up of the chessboard that is set up incorrectly. And in 1991's Saved by the Bell, the episode Check Your Mate, we see the main characters, Zack and Slater, kidnapping and impersonating a Russian chess player that attends a rival school to go against their friend Screech. Zack has no idea how to play chess and proceeds to play checkers against Screech with chess pieces, then resigning in order to win a bet that he had made against that rival school. Yeah. Lastly, we have Geico. I don't know if this was supposed to be treated seriously or if they intended to mess it up, but there is a commercial where a soccer announcer is trying to, quote, make any sport exciting, end quote. The position they show features a Sicilian-ish middle game / pawn structure, but black is down a rook for nothing, and white has 2 light squared bishops on f1 and e2 in the early middle game. On the complete other side of the spectrum, there's also a branch of chess media that focuses on real people, their real stories, and their growth of the game from a more documentarian standpoint. So I'm talking about the likes of the 2020 book Humor in Chess, which talked to over 50 people who had collected over 180 chess stories from real tournaments and real events. But some of them are pretty funny. So one of the excerpts was, quote, I saw a little kid who was playing black with seconds left on his clock. Suddenly, he picked it up, moved the clock to the other side of the board, and said, black gets to choose the side that the clock goes on. End quote. In 2012, we got the film Brooklyn Castle, which was based on the Intermediate School 318 in Brooklyn, New York, where, when faced with budget cuts, dedicated teachers and the local community helped build up students to become one of the winningest junior high chess teams in the country. In 2016, Disney released The Queen of Katwa. It depicted Phiona Mutesi of Uganda learning how to play chess from a missionary program, her growth as a player, the impact of sexism in chess, chess in developing countries, and the ups and downs that come with trying to improve. The movie culminates in her playing in the Chess Olympiad in Russia, but ultimately losing. In real life, she had scored 1.5 out of 7 in that Olympiad, and it was one of the 4 Olympiads that she played in her career. Phiona earned her Women's Candidate Master title. She was a 3-time winner of the Women's Junior Chess Championship of Uganda and the Under-20 Girls category winner of the National Junior Chess Championship of 2013. And that is who today's game is focused on. We are traveling to her 3rd Olympiad from 2014 in Tromsø, Norway. This Olympiad occurs 2 years after the movie that was created on her story. Phiona Mutesi versus Mustafa Manour Zienab. Now, if we're ready, let's begin.
1. Pawn to e4. Pawn to c5. Two, knight c3. Pawn to g6. Three, pawn to g3. Knight c6. Four, bishop g2. Knight f6. Five, pawn to d3. Pawn to d6. Six, knight g to e2.
In this type of position, why do you think white played the move knight g to e2 instead of the typical Sicilian move of knight to f3? Both moves do cover the key square of d4. However, in this type of structure, white is eventually hoping to play the move pawn from f2 to f4. So having a knight on f3 is counterproductive to that plan.
Bishop g7. Seven, pawn to h3. Rook b8. Eight, bishop e3. Castle kingside. Nine, castle kingside. Pawn to b5. Ten, queen d2. Pawn to b4. Eleven, knight d1. Knight d7. Twelve, pawn to f4. Pawn to a5. Thirteen, rook b1.
Why did white play the move rook to b1? Moving the rook to b1 is a bit of an ugly square for the white rook. However, it is trying to cover up the pawn that is on b2, so that way the dark squared bishop that is on g7 does not capture it. It also allows white's knight that is on d1 to get back into the action by being able to move to f2 or maybe eventually e3 and move on over to the king side.
Knight d4. Fourteen, pawn to g4. Knight captures e2 check. Fifteen, queen captures e2. Bishop d4. Sixteen, bishop captures d4. Pawn c captures d4. Seventeen, queen f2.
What is white's idea behind the move queen to f2? It is a dual-purpose threat. So for one, white is putting direct pressure onto the black pawn that is on d4, and white is also threatening to push the pawn that is on f4 forward to f5 and start to break into black's kingside structure.
Queen b6. Eighteen, pawn to f5. Knight e5. Nineteen, Queen h4. Pawn to e6. Pawn to f6.
Why would white play a move like pawn to f6 instead of capturing either pawn captures on e6 or pawn captures on g6? If white were to play pawn captures on e6, then black can respond with bishop captures on e6, which not only kills some of white's attack, but it also gets black's light-squared bishop into play. A move like pawn captures on g6 also shuts down some of white's play by allowing either the pawn on h7 to recapture or the knight that is on g6 to recapture. The idea behind the pawn to f6 puts the pawn onto a dark square, which black cannot target since they don't have a dark squared bishop anymore. It also cramps up black's position, preventing them from ever playing a move like pawn to f5, pawn to f6, just to give black some breathing room, and it also creates a lot of weaknesses on the dark squares around the black king.
King h8. Queen h6. Rook g8. Pawn to g5.
What is white's idea behind the move pawn to g5? The pawn on f6 was not in any danger. Black's position is already cramped, but the idea behind the move pawn to g5 is to help give white extra squares along the fourth rank. We will see how that comes into play in a couple of moves.
Bishop b7. Rook f4. Knight d7. Queen captures h7 check. Black resigns.
Why did black resign in this position? Black's only legal move is king captures on h7, after which white will play rook to h4 checkmate. So that's a pretty good ending to the game, being able to sacrifice your queen in the chess Olympiad. Chess is everywhere around us. It's been a game that has resonated with billions of people for almost 1,500 years. A game about strategy, hierarchies, players that don't know how to play it rising to be the top of the game, humans that break barriers while playing it. Everyone who plays this game has their own stories to tell, be that the games that got away, the games that will go down in their memories forever, or just like a funny moment between friends. And that is why we continue to play. There are always more stories to discover, learn, and share with each other. So that is all that we have for this week. Tune in next time where we will continue to work on our blindfold skills and look at another game of the Masters.